Hi guys, this is Chuxup from Born to Kill, and I decided to make this video to talk to people a little bit about uh, basic PvP tactics, moving around, whether it's through high sec during a war deck, faction war in low sec, or pirating in low sec or null sec. I think a lot of these topics are going to come in handy for newer players who are still kind of figuring out either how to move with a fleet or how to FC a fleet through hostile areas. Um, and this is kind of inspired by some of the guys I've been flying with in Faction War. We just started doing Faction War a couple weeks ago, and I've been flying under a lot of different FCs and flying with a lot of different fleet mates. And one thing about Faction War is that a lot of people, it's their first time ever really PvPing in EVE, so they don't have the experience and they don't know a lot of the tactical stuff that goes on in the game. And it's great though to see like a lot of guys stepping up that even don't have a lot of experience, because you always need to have someone FCing, especially if you're in a larger fleet. And I think a lot of these tactics and things we talk about, I think there's a lot that you can take away. The first thing is going to be, whenever you know that there's going to be a fleet, or there's talk of a fleet, or you know that we're going to move out into an area and try and take a system or go on a roam, you always want to have all your stuff in the staging system, and maybe have a jump clone set up there as well, which requires the skill infomorph, psychology, and science if you don't already have it. But that allows you to basically, if you have enough standing with a faction, you can set up a jump clone in their station or a corporation and use it to move back and forth between stations. So you don't actually have to have it with Caldari Navy. If we were going to install one in this station, I just have to have it with one faction or corporation, install one in their station, and then I can go over to the station I want a jump clone to be in and jump back from that station. Also, having ships ready in the staging system is really important, because a lot of times FC will want a fleet to leave at a certain time and you don't know about it till about 20 minutes before, and you know, if you're 15-20 jumps away, you don't have a ship ready, set up ready to go in the system, it's going to take a lot longer for people to get going. Another thing too is, if you're ready to go, don't just be sitting around outside the station hanging around. The reason you don't really want to do that is because if the enemy, whether they have, you know, in corp, out of corp, spies, alts, eyes, you know, cloaky, whatever, you don't want to be showing them what your numbers are, that you're grouping up, how many you have, what kind of ships you're in. Any kind of intel like that that's going to help them is just unnecessary to give to them until you absolutely have to. So don't undock and fly around until your FC tells you that you're moving out. Also, try not to share any intel about that if you know from the FC in the public militia channel. In general, you don't really want to fleet with anyone who you either don't know or is in the noob Caldari Corp for faction war. It's generally not good to, I mean, some of those guys might be fine, but for the most part, it's really easy for people to just join up, have a character in there that's maybe only a day old, and be able to get in your fleet, and it's essentially just a spy that's going to give away intel, give away your position, make it a lot easier for the enemies to to find you and kill you. Next thing is, this ship right here is going to lead us into having to basically, anytime you're moving out anywhere where there's going to be hostiles, or anywhere where your ship is able to be shot at, you actually want to have a scout. And this comes into play like even if you're playing solo and you're moving, you know, you got to move a hauler through an area of low sec possibly, that, you know, you really want to be sure, even though it's a cloaky or whatever, you want to be sure there's no big gate cams that are going to uncloak you. It's always nice to have a scout, which is typically the two ships that are designed for it best are interceptors, which are Tech 2 frigates, or covert ops ships, which are also Tech 2 frigates. Reason being, they can warp off a lot faster. So if you come across anything and you're in an interceptor, you're just going to be able to warp right away, and stuff will probably not be able to point you, unless there's other interceptors with sensor boosters or people that are remote sensor boosting. They're probably not going to get you. And if it looks like that's the case, that they're going to get you anyways, a lot of times you can set up either a single prop mod, like a micro warp drive or an afterburner, or a good fitting, as well as if you do a dual prop. So if you can fit, if I were to take this off and I can put on a micro warp drive as well,
Insufficient power.
it barely doesn't fit like this, but I could change the fitting around, figure out a way to do dual prop on this. And what that does is, when I jump through that gate, if there's guys on the other side, let's say worst case scenario, null sec, I'm in a bubble. If I have a micro warp drive and an afterburner, what that will let me do is, the second I know I need to burn back to the gate, and if I approach that gate, turn on my micro warp drive, and someone lands a scram on me, I can quickly switch over to the afterburner, and that will give me a little extra bonus speed, hopefully, to get back to that gate. It's a little bit of a different tactic if you're in a covert ops ship, which I don't believe I have here, but that would be, as you come through the gate, and maybe I'll talk about this in another video, but as you come through the gate, you immediately, if you're trying to burn out and warp off, double click somewhere, activate your cloak, and then activate your micro warp drive, and it will actually give you a little speed boost as you cloak because of the lag. Or you can do the same thing to try to get back to the gate. But that's really the reason why you want one of these ships scouting, is because if you have something, I mean, a frigate, like a Rifter or a Tech 1 frigate will work fine, but if you have something any bigger than that, really, it's not going to do a good job scouting when it's getting blown up, because it's not able to get back to the gate, or not able to get away from whatever's on it. Also, the good thing about having something fast like an interceptor as a scout is they are able to quickly point other ships. So your scan resolution on your ship determines how fast you can lock a target, and a lot of times, or generally speaking, the smaller your ship is, the higher your scan resolution is. So the shorter, the quicker you lock things, the shorter time it takes to lock a target. And the larger the target is, the easier it is to lock, or the shorter you lock it. So most ships can pretty much lock anything of their same class before it's able to just warp off. A lot of times though, like, if, say, I'm in this slasher and there's another slasher and he goes to warp, I don't have any sensor boosters, and if he has, nanofiber or an inertia stabilizer, something that makes him align quickly, chances I'm going to lock him and get a point on him. A warp disruptor before he warps off is pretty low. However, if he's in like a cruiser size ship and I'm in an interceptor, the chances are really high that I'm going to get a lock off and get a warp disruptor on him before he warps. A lot of times as a scout, it's good to have a long point instead of a short point, which is this. I don't seem to have any here. I'm sure I have one on another ship. So this light blue module, the warp disruptor 2, the range on it, default range for Tech 2 is 24 kilometers. If you overheat it, I think it goes to 26 or 28, and then if you have links in your fleet, it goes even further. That disallows the enemy from warping off, and so if you have the longer range one, it does not shut down micro warp drive. If you have the short range Scram, the dark blue one, it does shut down micro warp drive as well as disable their warp function. However, that one only goes out to 9K, so it's less than half the range. If you're going to be the scout, you probably want to have a long point, not this one, the Tech 2 warp disruptor. The reason being, A lot of the gates around this area and in most parts of Eve are what people call regional gates, which are actually, I think they're typically used traveling between from one constellation to another, and they're larger gates. Out in Nullsec, there's a lot of gates that are, I guess, just small gates that are the area of the gate is much smaller. So if you were to sit in the middle of the gate and someone jumps through the gate towards you, typically they're going to land about 30k off the outside of the gate. If it's a small gate, that distance is not going to be that far if you're sitting on the gate. If it's a large gate, that distance could be 60k. So your job as the scout and as an interceptor pilot or any frigate tackle pilot in general is to get point. So approach that guy and get your micro warp drive on, get your warp disruptor on him before he's able to warp off. If you have a long point, it's easier to get that job done. If you're sitting on the gate, a lot of times you're going to be, as long as you're sitting at 0 on the gate, you're going to be in range to land a warp disruptor on most things. And if they're bigger than you, you're going to lock it and land that warp disruptor before they warp off. So let's go out into space and actually take a look at how this is going to work. I think I forgot to online my
insufficient power.
That's because I changed my fit around a little bit. Oh well. So I'm going to warp over to the gate and show you what I'm talking about. So if I'm scouting for a fleet right now, the FC would be giving me commands and the fleet should still be docked at the station. He shouldn't have the fleet undock until I land on this gate. And he shouldn't have the fleet warp to the gate until I tell him what's on the other side. So right now this gate's clear. I'm gonna act like I'm scouting for a fleet. I'm jumping, so he should now be saying, okay, everyone undock, warp, align Akadagi gate. And he says, scout what's over there. And I would say there's a friendly tram landing on gate and an enemy Thrasher 300k off the gate down to the bottom at a tactical. And he warped off. The next thing you're going to do is open up your scan. Directional scan, make sure it's set to max. So an easy way to do that is just go in here, hold down 9s. Hit scan, I got Blackbird and Cormorant. If I look at my overview, I know that my maximum scanner, my directional scan range is going to be 14 AU. So if I look at my overview, I can see there's nothing in that range. And so these guys are probably in warp yet. One of them's landing right now. The other guy's either in warp here or he's at a safe spot or position between me and something in system. So now I also give the FC intel about how many people are in local and how many there are. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 8 war targets in local. I'm going to reapproach the gate. So if an enemy were to come through this gate right now, and I'm in this position on the gate, this close to the gate is probably the best position to be at. And that's because if I were to stay 20k off the gate, like I was just out at, and someone were to jump through the gate and I'm over here, and he comes through over here, I'm all of a sudden 40k away from him. There's no way I'm going to get point on him unless I burn at him very quickly before he's able to warp off. I basically want to be in range, in point range of anything that's going to be jumping through here. So being at 0 on the gate is the best way to do that. But you don't want to be like, you want to be, see, I'm at 0 on the gate. It says 0 meters from the HO gate right now. And I'm not really on the gate. And you don't really want to be on the gate, because if you're, say I'm right here, and you're right in there, all of a sudden, okay, someone comes in and they're on this bomb sign. I gotta burn down to that. Even with micro warp drive on, I'm gonna be bumping off this thing. I'm gonna be bouncing around. That's not good. You know, eventually I'll get around it. I'll get down there. But if I'm just barely on the gate, if I'm just at that 1,000 mark, or that 0 mark, but I'm actually like a couple thousand off. You know, this is probably good, because even if he appears over here and I have to go, you know, this way, at least I can still get to him. The angle isn't so severe on that gate. So we're target Thrasher. Oh, a couple Thrashers just landed and they're gonna try and pop me. I have to bounce out.
Warp drive active.
Oh, Caracol just ended up there. So the reason those guys weren't able to get me, I mean, they might have had scan res scripts on or whatever, but anytime you're in a smaller ship and you activate the gate before they activate the gate, if you're in a smaller ship than them, you're pretty much going to warp off every single time, as long as there's no one on the other side. If you just instantly go to warp. So that's a good lesson there. Now, one reason I might not want to go back to that gate right now is these guys are fighting or something. Oh, someone just killed my buddy. Can't engage him though. Might have to edit this video so I have all this random shit in it. So I guess something I can mention here is the importance of using hotkeys. So right now I have this bound to A, this bound to S, I have my weapons bound to Q. The reason you want to do that, the reason I prefer to do it, I mean, this is kind of like a grid setup. So I have this Q, W, E, R, is because my hand can just sit there on the keyboard and control all these modules. And what that allows me to do is I can manually pilot around like this, and as you can see, I'll turn on my afterburner, I can turn off my afterburner. If I lock, you know, if I need to lock something up, I can lock it up. I can quickly activate my mods on it if I want to. And I don't have to use my mouse to do any of that. So, you know, I'll turn on my micro warp drive. Another big one is I have my space bar set to stop. I don't have control space, just the space bar. So if I'm flying around and I decide I'm going to try and stop on this thing, I'll approach it, turn off my micro warp, start spamming stop as I approach it, respam approach, spam stop again, and I can pretty much guarantee that I'm going to be like right there. So there's a lot of, especially in smaller ships, ways that you can control your ship a lot more effectively if you're using those hotkeys. So another thing with the gates is always having, anytime you're moving a fleet through a gate, you always want to have eyes on both sides of it. So if I'm to warp to this gate and there's some hostiles here and I decide, hey, we're gonna FC, these are our hostiles, and the FC says, okay, great, it sounds like we can fight them, let's go fight them. He's gonna want to have me or someone jump through to the other side of that gate before we fight, before we engage. Reason being, they could have a huge fucking fleet on the other side. We'd have no idea without having someone over there. So you always want to have eyes on each side of the gate. You never want to put your fleet in a position where you don't know what's on the other side of the gate from them. Also, if I go into a system, I find some targets in there. Say they're at one of the outposts or something. If I say, you know, I jump through and I go, hey, FC, there's there's an Atron at the small outpost. And he goes, okay, what he should do is tell me, let's see how this goes. So I'm going to try to warp off here. See what happens.
Warp drive active.
Yeah, it worked. My other option would be to burn back to the gate. I'm just afraid with all those thrashers, it's just going to give them enough time to pop me. I'm taking the risk though that if any of those guys had like 2 sensor boosters, I probably would have just popped instantly. Probably would have even been able to get that warp off. Luckily they don't.
Warp drive active.
So you know, if I were to say, okay, FC, we got this, we got all that stuff on the other side, and I had a fleet behind me, and he said, okay, I want to fight that. One way that could end disastrously is I just go in and say, I'm just going to tackle this thing right here. I go in to tackle that, and the thrashers are going to kill me before anything happens. And all of a sudden, they'll see a bunch of gate flash, they'll see local filling up, and they're all just warp off. A better way to do it is, you know, if he could just, before I even decloak, he just jumps everyone, and we just start grabbing stuff together. That's one way. But if I say I were to find someone at a plex, not one of these plexes here, say I got someone on scan at the medium and we want to go kill him, the worst thing that he could do is right now as I'm warping to that medium is to bring everyone into the system. If the FC were to now say, okay, great, we got a target, everyone jump, everyone starts jumping, all of a sudden our target, before we even have point on him, is panicking and trying to get out, figuring out a place to warp out to get safe. But if I'm coming in here, like I got a thorax in this medium right here, or on the gate to the medium at least, and I were to get point on this guy, that's when the FC would want to call everyone in. And I kind of wish we had a fleet with us right now, because I could totally point this guy and we could probably kill him. It's okay though. So the information I got from doing that is that he has a long point. He doesn't have a short point. So I could probably get on top of this guy. He also has rail guns. I might even take this fight right now. The only concern I have is that he has a web, possibly. He most likely has drones. That'll chew me up. I don't want to get too close. But if I had a fleet, I would definitely go for a tackle on that guy. Get the fleet in here and kill him.
Warp drive active.
That was kind of close. So something that I guess you could take away from that right there is always stay aligned to something when you're in combat. Generally when you're engaging people, especially if you're kiting, you always want to be able to just run if you need to. It's more important that you get your ship out than it is that you get the kill in most cases. Sometimes it's required that you kill a guy to get your ship out, but a lot of times it's a lot more important that you just survive. Let your ship be able to fight another fight. Okay, so now I guess we'll talk about overview setup and the way I have mine. Maybe the way that most people should have it set up or something similar to this is that, so there's 2 different things that I kind of do differently in my overview, and I guess that would be the way that I use color tags and backgrounds. The way that you want to order these, though, is pretty much how everyone's going to want you to have them ordered, and that's for the color tag section, you're going to have this order is kind of like a hierarchy, if you will, of
Warp drive
of different settings or filters. Make a save spot really quick. So what we have on top is the fleet, corporation, alliance. These are all checked, by the way. There's only a couple of these that aren't checked. Fleet, Corp, alliance, excellent standing, good standing, militia. So these are all your friends, basically. People in your fleet are going to be purple. People in your corp are going to be green with a star. Alliance, blue star, excellent, blue plus, good, light blue plus, militia, purple star. So this order means that the top one supersedes everything else. So if anyone's in your fleet, they're going to be purple. If they're in your corp but not in your fleet, they're going to be that. So, whatever is on top is what you will see first. So that's why right here I have the next one down is at war. So I don't care if the guys that I'm at war with are a criminal. I don't care if they're a suspect. I don't care if they have limit. I just want to know that they're at war, and that's why I have these red stars on top here. Now it's important that you have this criminal suspect security status below all this stuff below your purple star, because you don't want people in your militia being flashy skull, because these are all going to be, to me, these all mean I can attack this guy. If it's a flashy skull, it means I can attack him, but yeah, I'm not at war with him. So that's for criminal suspect, security below 5, limited engagement. Kill right, you can activate, that's just nice to know. Terrible bad standing, these are things that you either set yourself or by your corp, so you want to know that, but you want all this other stuff is more important. Security status below 0, I don't even have it on, because I'm below 0, but I'm not below 5, and I don't really care. If other people are below 0, it doesn't mean anything to me. It doesn't mean that I can attack them, so there's no reason for me to know that. Bounty, everyone seems like has a bounty on them nowadays, so I don't care about that either. These are agent things. Neutral, I just like to know. I have some people neutral just to keep them as a contact, but I don't want to set them either way. And then I guess an ally is what I have at the bottom. I'm just not concerned with that. For my backgrounds, I have basically the same thing you saw on the other page in the same order, with just the colors. So I really like using backgrounds on everything. Bad standing, terrible standing, I don't really care to use a background, and I don't really use orange as a background unless it's this one, kill right, that you can activate. I just have everything set to red background here, and I do that because, throw up a scan really quick, make sure no one's trying to scam me. And I do that because these are all kill on sight for me. These all mean you can shoot anywhere you see this guy in space, no matter what, you can shoot this guy and you'll be fine. So that's why I have all these as just red. I don't have red blinky. The only thing I have blinky on are the color tags. Like you can see this guy here, just to alert me when someone goes suspect, when someone goes criminal. I don't have blinking on the backgrounds because when I'm in a big fight and I have my entire overview blinking red, it's just distracting as hell to me. I can't read shit. So that's why I have it the solid red here. Security status below 0 I don't care about. Bounty I don't care. Neutral, yeah, these I don't need color tags for. Criminal, suspect, yes, yes. Let me know about those. That means I can shoot them. So that's good to have. E-War, you want all this on. Now there's another way to kind of filter your overview for people that are friendly to you to not show up, and that would be, like, I have this set as my PvP overview. So what you do is you uncheck pilot has excellent standing, pilot has good standing, pilot is in your alliance, pilot's in your corp, pilot's in your fleet, pilot is in your militia or allied to your militia. If you have those unchecked for this overview state, for this PvP state, it'll let you see any hostiles on here. Or not just hostiles, it'll let you see anyone that isn't those things. So if they are any of these things that you've unchecked, they will not appear here. So this is really handy when you're in a big fleet fight. So if you have, sort by distance or whatever, you don't want to have all your enemies lined up. The other thing I do on this is I take off all the stations, I take off all the gates, I take off everything, and I just have the sun. And the reason I do that is because there's been times where I'll have a gate on here and I'll be trying to lock up an enemy, and I end up like locking the gate on accident. So that's why I take it off on my PvP, just to be safe. And the reason I keep the sun on there is if I have it sorted by distance, the sun's always going to be the furthest thing away in a fight, and I can use it as a warp out point for my pod if I'm really desperate for that. Otherwise, I should have something that I found on my bracket overview to align to ensure that I get out. Also, if you're going to line out to try to get out of a fight, you either want to turn off your micro warp drive if it's already on. Like if I'm going this way and I go, shit, I need to get out, I'm going to align here. And make sure you have it turned off. That's because in order for you to warp, you have to be aligned to whatever you're trying to warp to and be going 3/4 of your maximum speed. If you have a micro warp drive on, your maximum speed is significantly higher. So getting to 3/4 speed takes a lot longer, even though you have your prop mod on. So it's never, if you're ever trying to align out, warp somewhere, always have your micro warp drive or your afterburner turned off. What else was I going to talk about? I guess that's pretty much it that I have for this video. I'm going to edit this up a little bit, and if I forget anything, I'll come back. Alright, well, thanks for watching, guys, and I hope this helped, and I hope you guys have fun in whatever form of PvP that you decide that this applies to for you. Thanks, and hope you can subscribe and continue watching my videos. Have a good day.